Hi, my name is Sarah Elgatian. I am the mistress of social media over at the Midwest Writing Center. Um, One of those people who can't get a haircut. Uh, I am here since Ryan could not do the Write More Light for today to just give a couple of updates and some book recommendations. So, first, we have just closed for submissions for the Young Emerging Writers um, internship, so that's going to be really exciting. It's starting soon. Um, I I did that program when I was a teen, and honestly, don't I would not be the writer I am today without that program. So I'm super excited every year for the new cohort. Um, of course, I just said the submissions are closed for that, so we can move on to Birdies for Charity. That is still happening this year. I will be throwing the link in the comments of this video for how to choose Midwest Writing Center as your charity for Birdies. And we hope that you'll choose us. There are, of course, as always, little prizes, sorry, um, for donors, and they they are, as always, matching up to a certain amount. We are charity 1370 on Birdies for Charity, but again, I will put that link in the comments. Tomorrow is the annual meeting for the Midwest Writing Center. That is usually, that's open to the public. It's not usually wildly attended by the public, of course. It's a special interest sort of thing. But of course, you're totally welcome to come. There's a raffle. One winner will win full scholarship to the David R. Collins Writers Conference, which I'm totally a little biased, but it's my favorite event of the year every year. It's my favorite writing conference I've ever been to. I find that without fail, I'm more productive as a writer for 2 or 3 months following the conference just because I get these amazing instructors, these amazing ideas, this great motivation, these great resources. Something that especially excites me about it being online this year is that I can rope in people from outside the Midwest to go. I know that my friends in Seattle have heard me talk about it a lot, so I'm hoping that's a good motivation for them to be like, well, we are stuck inside. I've the last few years since I've been back in Iowa, I've called off work for it because it's so worth it. But now people from far away can do it. And that's especially exciting. The faculty this year, as always, it's killer. Ryan, our director, always manages to find just the most amazing faculty, and right before they just become stupid famous, we have our keynote speaker this year is the divine Liz Lenz, who's been on our faculty for the last 2 years teaching essay writing and talking about how to write an effective essay and also how to freelance your essays. She's really amazing. She has had a book come out this last fall called Godland. And she's got another book coming out this fall called Belabored. She was published too in Not That Bad, the essay anthology edited by Roxane Gay. She was a staff writer for the Columbia Journalism Review, or a contributing writer. And now she's the columnist for the Cedar Rapids Gazette. She's just amazing. You can find her work all over the place. And then we've got a good friend of the center, Missy Urban, will be teaching short fiction. And that's the early morning class, which, again, luckily we don't have to wake up early to drive. You can roll out of bed with your coffee and sit down. That's 8:45 in the morning. Maybe that's not early for everyone. I'm going to read part of her description of her course here. It's called Crafting Small Fictions. It says, whether they're micro, nano, sudden, flash, pocket size, smoke long, or 6 words or less, short fictions deliver a big punch. We'll study expert examples that show us how to achieve the compression and impact of the very short form, and then we'll write our own stories that, to riff on Blake, condense the universe into a grain of sand. Please be prepared to go small and dive deep. So if you haven't been to many Midwest Writing Center events, then you probably don't know Misty. She's at a lot of them. She is an amazing writer. She was nominated for Pushcart Prize. She's been published all over the place. She has an MFA and a PhD from Cornell University, and she's a medieval scholar. She's amazing. She also runs the Writers on the Avenue group in Muscatine, and she's responsible for femliterate.net. She's amazing. We also have a return from Callie White Von Bali. She will be teaching foundational elements of the novel. I took a class from her at the conference in 2014. And I still use my notes from that when I'm working on stories today. It was amazing. It made that class made me see my characters better, made me understand my plot better. Really, really killer teacher she is. She's got a bunch of books out too. You can look her up. I'll put links, of course, to all of these faculty members in the comments and on our page. And in the next week, I'll be starting my promotion of the authors, which I'm really excited about. I get to interview them and do fun little posts with quotes, and I think it helps to get to know the faculty a little bit ahead of time. It makes me more excited about going to their classes, stuff like that. So the description of Callie's class, the foundational elements of the novel, is this. The workshop will examine 6 essential foundational elements of writing the novel: plot, characterization, point of view, dialogue, setting, and scene. We'll discuss important considerations for each craft element, examine successful examples from various published works, use corresponding writing exercises to help develop and deepen the practice of each element. Writing exercise will generate new work or can be applied to a work in progress, and participants will have multiple opportunities during class time to share writing exercise outcomes. All experience levels and novel genres welcome. Now, I think another cool part of that is that I don't know, something like this sounds like it's going to be a really advanced course, and so I feel like I would be really intimidated by that if I hadn't taken a class from her before. But she's such a good teacher. She really is going to be just fine if you don't have a full novel ready to go or work on, or a fully fleshed out idea. And I also love the all novel genres welcome. I feel like there's some hate on genre writing, and you're not going to get that there, which is so great. Callie's novels, she has some published as Callie White Von Bali, Callie White and Callie Von Bali, titled The Monsters We Make, The Good Divide, and The Space Between. She received the American Book Award, an Eric Hoffer Book Award, and she was one of our Great River Writers Retreats recipients. So was Missy Urban. And of course, she's been published everywhere because all of them have, all of these faculties. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Rebecca Wee. She's a professor at Augustana and was part of the development of the creative writing major, which is awesome and, needs to exist, and she's part of the reason it exists, so that's really cool. The class she's teaching is on poetry, on making new poems. Now, she has 3 sessions, so each day is a different theme. Day 1 is Begin Anywhere, Day 2 is The Unsayable Said, and Day 3 is You Must Change Your Life. Each workshop day will open with words on poets or poems that have helped her make her way. At the start of each session, she'll distribute a handout of poems to inspire and guide writing, and there'll be time for folks to share what they're writing. I think that's always, of course, really helpful in a classroom or workshop setting to have this, distinguished faculty who can help guide or point out what's really working. So I started at the morning. We're getting later in the day now. So Rebecca Wee's class is 1:45 to 3:15. Then we have 2 classes offered from 3:30 to 5, and these are all Thursday through Saturday, June 25th, 26th, and 27th. So at the 3:30 hour, you'll have to choose either between the business of writing, which is taught by both Misty and Callie, and gymnastics for memoirists. I think we all kind of want to write memoirs. I think a lot of fiction and maybe most is too big a word, nonfiction is really all swirls around the memoir, whether or not it's an essay or a fiction about someone who happens to be your race, gender, and age growing up where you grew up. Maybe their life's a little more interesting, but we were all told at one point to write from experience, right? So sorry, let's talk about Felicia Schneider Han, who is teaching the gymnastics for memoirists. The description of that course is memoir writers need agility, strength, and flexibility. This active writing workshop, sorry, I shook my computer, builds your skills with form and structure to best tell your stories. The writers should come ready to experiment on the page in this intensive memoir writing boot camp. Personally, I get really excited when I see that a workshop wants me to be ready to experiment, because I find that I do my best work when I'm uncomfortable. It might not be best the first time around, right? The first draft. But, something really exciting happens when you get uncomfortable. So I get excited when I see that a workshop says, be ready to experiment. And I also get excited when it says intensive, because, again, it's going to push your limits. Felicia Schneider Han is a Moline native who has taught at the DRC conference before, and she's been a participant. I didn't realize till I was putting together information on her to try and do an interview with her that I've sat next to her in workshops. I felt really silly about that. She writes literary journalism for many magazines, including Real Simple and Parents. Her memoir and fiction pieces have appeared widely, of course. And her memoir, which came out in 2015, Newlyweds Afloat, details the years she and her husband Mark lived on their trawler in downtown Chicago. She now lives with Mark and their 3 tsunamis. I assume that's children. It could be pets, on the northern shore of Lake Superior. And then that's going to be cool. She's a really, really cool person. That business of writing class with Misty and Callie the full title is The Business of Writing, Edit, Polish, Query, and Submit. And the description of that course is, the art of writing is one thing, but the business of writing is an entirely different beast. In this workshop, we'll discuss how to prepare your work for submission and publication, which begins with good editing, developmental editing, line editing, and copy editing. It's 3 different kinds of editing, and they're all totally different from each other. I learned that recently and was overwhelmed by the information. We'll also discuss traditional publishers, agents, editors, small presses, hybrid publishing, and self-publishing for all genres, and how to write query letters, cover letters, fiction synopses, and nonfiction proposals. They will answer questions along the way and hopefully make the overall submission process feel more organized and less intimidating. So I'm going to have a hard time choosing personally which of those 3:30 classes to take. Because I do write a lot of nonfiction, a lot of memoir-y stuff, a lot of essays, but I also want to sell it. Yeah, I will do a couple more little bullet points on the conference, which is we are going to be primarily online this year, obviously. Most of us, I think, are under some kind of quarantine or another. But the book fair is still going to happen. We're going to have that online. The conference keynote and the faculty reading and participant open mic are still going to happen, probably over Zoom. If you've never used any of these digital mediums before, I'll be around to help you learn. We'll produce some literature on how to run these programs so that you can participate as comfortably as possible. We're also, of course, as we always have previously, doing a manuscript critique. where writers can have up to 10 pages of a manuscript reviewed in a one-on-one session. That'll be about 30 minutes with the instructor of your choice. That'll be Felicia, Misty, Callie, or Rebecca during the conference, but you'll schedule that one-on-one with the instructor you choose. The critiques are $50. And yeah, so that's going to be when you sign up for the workshop and you choose all of your sessions that you want to go to. Then you can also go ahead and, if you want to, choose a manuscript critique. Some of the instructors are offering more sessions than the others. Some of them are sold out. Some of them will have sold out. They haven't all sold out. I don't think any of them quite yet, but I'm considering that one too. There's also the opportunity for folks to pitch their books to Legacy Book Press or the Midwest Writing Center Press. So that does also have a fee associated with it. It's $15 to submit your manuscript to one of these two presses, and then you'll give a pitch, have something prepared, hopefully, to present to the folks who are running those presses. That'll be Legacy Press is run by Jody Toohey, and I think there will be a panel from the Midwest Writing Center Press to accept your pitches. Folks who advance through the process of pitching will be asked for more information, and it'll go on from that initial pitch. So that'll be really cool. Thank you for bearing with me while I try to read all the stuff. I am sure that all the time I sound a little bit too enthusiastic, but I really, really love this organization. I really, really love the conference. I know I've said this already just in the last few minutes, but this really is my favorite event of the year. I mean, that's why I wanted to have this opportunity to talk to you, since Ryan's unavailable. I asked him if I could do it. I'm really excited about it. So after this, now I'm going to tell you about some friends of ours in the community. The Midwest Writing Center has been doing a little bit of collaboration with the Indigenous Arts Alliance out of the Meskwaki Nation here in Iowa. That's near Tama, Iowa. They've been doing, Dawson Davenport, the director over there, has been doing he runs the Indigenous Peoples Art Gallery and Cafe, and through them it has been doing virtual readings every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central Time with different Indigenous writers from around the world, which is dope. And we've been sort of co-hosting, running the media side of things. And they've been so good. I highly recommend you check out the Indigenous Peoples Art Gallery and Cafe page. I've probably posted some stuff from them on the Midwest Writing Center page. Well, I know I did on Saturday. So you can check that out. They're also, they have a call for artists right now, and that is any kind of art medium, which is super cool. That's partially to do the live readings, but also, you know, if you're a musician or a visual artist, there's some opportunity here coming up in the future to do that live too. During one of those readings, the readings have had musicians do little live sets as part of the reading too, of course, but the visual element is super exciting and new. For those interested in participating in the readings, email Indigenous Art Alliance, that's art singular, at gmail.com. Send Dawson at that email address, Indigenous Art Alliance, I'm going to have to write this down, INDIGENOUSARTALLIANCE. I had it written down already. I knew I was going to need that. At gmail.com. Send some writing. The first few people who are chosen will also get a free signed copy of Tanea Winder's first book of poetry, which is really great. She was on our second reading, so you can check her out too. All of the Indigenous Peoples Art Gallery and Cafe readings are on the Midwest Reading Center YouTube page, and they're all also posted to the Indigenous Peoples Art Gallery and Cafe Facebook page. So you can go review the last 8 weeks of readings. They've all been really amazing. We've had Kristen DeMar, who's a Midwest Writing Center friend, and Gina Cole, who's a really, really important civil rights advocate in New Zealand. She's a Fijian writer. We had, of course, Tanea Winder, Cinnamon Kills First, Chewy Renteria. I'm totally missing probably 15 writers, but I'm just trying to illustrate how many very different and very, very talented people have been on that series. So of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Email Dawson at indigenousartalliance@gmail.com. Visit that page with questions. Another friend of the center, the Writers' Rooms, that's located in the Iowa City Cedar Rapids corridor, has a lot going on right now. They used to always have these meetings for a different genre once a week, and now, of course, they're online, which makes it a little more accessible. Also a little less accessible. I mean, there are definitely hurdles to accessibility with the internet, but, you know, you don't need to be off work at a certain time. You don't need to have transportation, so it's pretty exciting. They've got a book coming out. Their paperback community anthology, Writers of the Depths, is coming out May 28th. That is Thursday, I think. There's going to be a little live party on Facebook. On the Facebook page is called The Writers' Rooms. That'll be 6 to 8 p.m. on Thursday. They also have open submissions for their next anthology, which is going to be called Writers of the Ether. The theme is air. They had their last anthology just was published recently on paper, and the theme was water, so I think we can expect Earth and Fire to come up too. They're accepting poetry, short stories, graphic narratives. The website for that, if you need more information, is thewritersrooms.org, THEWRITERSROOMS.org. They're also hosting a virtual author event called The Writers' Rooms. It was previously an in-person event held at the Cedar Rapids Library called IOWA, not Iowa. They changed the acronym, so I cannot totally tell you what that stands for. It was something other worlds with authors, but it's different now. I shouldn't even try. I'm going to embarrass myself. That's going to be November 7th and 8th. They're also accepting authors who want to have a chance to showcase their books and themselves. Again, visit their website or email welcome@thewritersrooms.org for more information. I'm sure you can message them on their Facebook page too. So, what else do we have? Talked about Birdies? Cool. So now, like it or not, I'm going to be giving you some book recommendations. I have a huge pile next to me. I tried to keep it primarily indie or stuff that you maybe haven't experienced, but we will see. I've got a couple of things that are like, I need a quarantine read that doesn't hurt my brain and is short, and I've got a lot of nonfiction, a couple of YA, a couple of children's, some comics. I'm just gonna bring them out. Pulling my title toward me. Let's start with here. Okay. I already talked about this one today, so that's good. This is by Liz Lenz, the David R. Collins Writers Conference keynote speaker this year. So the subtitle is A Story of Faith, Loss, and Renewal in Middle America. It's actually pretty short, an easy read. Liz is really funny while also like really saying lots of things that are really important and meaningful, and you're a little upset that she broke your heart. Super honest. It's a great book. I'm not going to show you any books that are not fantastic unless I haven't read them, and I will admit that should the time come. Okay, this is a short story anthology called Modern Myths by Clara Chow. She's a Singaporean writer who was in Iowa last year for the International Writing Program's residency program. These are all short stories that follow figures from Greek mythology as if they live in the 21st century. Freaking amazing. Hilarious and deep. Amazing. This is, of course, I like short stories. I like essays because you don't need to commit. It's like watching a TV show versus a movie. Sometimes I don't want to sit down that long. Here's another. This is not indie, but she's not the most well-known person anymore, and it's also one of those easy, I don't need to commit reads for comic book lovers. It's prose, but it's fantastic. It's The Refrigerator Monologues by Katherine M. Valente. It takes the trope of the refrigerator woman, which is shorthand for, there's a lot of comic book heroes who, at least in the early days, part of their character development was that their girlfriend died in a really terrible way, and then they became the hero that they are today. So this takes the stories of those women, those girlfriends, and it's their stories from the afterlife. It's really cool. And again, like, you don't have to commit to it, though they do have multiple stories. They do all come together. So you don't have to read it in one sitting, but it is nice to read it as a unit rather than one a day while you're reading something else, or I don't know how you read. I talked about this one, Kelsey Pineda's Rare Earth, at the National Poetry Month reading on April 9th. She also read with us, of course, and was amazing. She is a Midwesterner. She's living in Arizona now, but these poems, this is poetry, talk about the prairie. They talk about, it's quoted as, what is it, a new pastoral, which I love, just that idea. She does some really great things with form in here and with language. I should not have chosen so many books. I'm going to run out of things to say about them. I grabbed this one, Carson Vaughn's Zoo, Nebraska, because Tiger King was so popular, and I felt like I didn't need more sad zoo stories. That said, this reads like true crime, which is crazy because it's just the history of a roadside zoo in Nebraska. It's really beautifully done. Carson is a journalist, but he's got some real art to his prose, and it's a heartbreaking but also like ends on a high note story about a roadside zoo. This Zoo, Nebraska is the name of the zoo. The subtitle is The Dismantling of an American Dream. Is obviously a zoo in Nebraska, in eastern Nebraska, where in not too long ago, I want to say in the aughts, but maybe more recently than that, some of the animals got loose. So, cool story. This is volume 2 of one of my favorite series. It's a graphic nonfiction aimed toward children on Black history. Figures in Black history who you didn't learn about in school. Joel Christian Gill has written lots of children's books that deal with Black history, but this series, Strange Fruit, is it's like an anthology of biographies in graphic form, and they're so good. And the art is amazing. He is careful and delicate, and also doesn't hold back with the content. It's really, I can't recommend it highly enough for anyone who cares about history. Oh, here's another friend of the center. This is Matt Hart's Obliterations. I haven't read this one yet, but I've read 2 of his other books, which were amazing, and this was just at the top of my pile next to my bed, which is why it's the one I grabbed instead of one that I've already read. But he is it's not experimental, but it's because he knows so well. He has such skill. He knows what he's doing. But it reads like punk. It reads like rebellion. Read Matt Hart. You've heard that before. He comes to our events, and he's a friend of the center. Read him. Related on the same team as Matt Hart is Adam Fell. This is a book of poetry too, but it's written as if it's epistolaries, and also really innovative, different. The form is different. He has a different way with words. Yeah, really, I'm losing vocabulary. I'm talking about too many books that I like. Here's a book, nonfiction, I just finished last night. Battle for the Marble Palace. Subtitle, Abe Fortas, Earl Warren, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, and the Forging of the Modern Supreme Court. I told you I would try and mix up the genre a little bit. It looks like it's 9,000 pages. It is 344 pages. Painstakingly researched, and it really good read on U.S. history and the Supreme Court, obviously. I wasn't alive for Eisenhower through, well, this deals with Eisenhower through Nixon. I wasn't alive for any of that. So it's a lot of new information, and I had to consult my dictionary several times. But also, he adds in references to things happening in modern times and builds this suspense and tension and hope, which I think is really hard to do when you're dealing with history, when you know how it's going to end, you know how the last confirmation went for a Supreme Court justice, and this is about how we came to have the procedures and the norms that we have today. So Bobelian, the author is Michael Bobelian, has just a gift for that. I read his other book too, and it did the same thing, just so artfully talks about history in such a way that I'm like worried about the outcome. Of course, like I said, highly recommend. How about a YA book? Haven't gotten there yet. This is not indie. This is by Harper, but I think a really important book. It's called The Exact Opposite of Okay by Laura Stephen, a friend of mine, Jennifer. She is the children's section manager at the Barnes & Noble in Coralville. Recommended this to me, and I have not been steered wrong by her yet. It's about this teen girl, she's 18, which is important, who sort of gets involved in a sex scandal just by acting like a normal kid. She sends her first dirty picture, and it ends up online, and there's so many important contemporary elements of how technology has changed things for kids, and how things that are normal these days can have such terrible and long-lasting side effects. So this girl happens to be sexting, I guess, a senator's son, and so it became a huge controversy. But it tackles sex and sexuality, and poverty, and revenge porn. It's also funny, and the main character is the narrator, is really realistic, and like you want to be her friend, but like she's a kid. She makes back. I don't want to say that her decisions are bad decisions, but she doesn't necessarily think everything through, and most of her fate is beyond her control, and how she deals with it is just fantastic. The author is fantastic. The narrator is fantastic. YA, I think, is really underappreciated as a genre. We, I don't know, decide that if it's not like literary fiction, then it's not, I don't know, highbrow enough. We push it away like it's not worthy, it's not good enough, it's lowbrow. That's not the case. The difference between fiction and children's fiction or young adult fiction is the age of the protagonist. Yeah, so let's go a total 180 from there and talk about Stephen Crane. This is one of his short story anthologies, The Open Boat. That is another one of my like quarantine read ideas. It's short. They're all short stories. And I think he's probably the most talented. Oh God, now let me figure out what time he was born. He was in the Civil War, right? He wrote Red Badge of Courage. I think he's one of the most talented writers in U.S. history. That's the point. My very favorite story of his, one of my favorite stories of all time, is in this anthology, and the story, it's also public domain, so you can access this without paying for it. But the story that I am so in love with is Maggie, a Girl of the Streets. That's Maggie, a Girl of the Streets, which is some of the most beautiful prose I will ever read. That's just about being a poor woman in New England in the 19th century. Yep, 19th century. So good. So good. Also, I would say most YA can, in my book, qualify as a quarantine read because it goes by faster. This book I will never stop recommending, They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. It's a series of essays. I recommend reading them in order because they all tie together. They build in tension, they build in topic. It deals with primarily music. Like it's an anthology of essays about music, but it deals with race, and it deals with bereavement, it deals with poetry, it deals with coming of age, identity. There's not a bad thing that can be said about this book. And as a book of essays, you don't have to sit down and read it all at once. You know, you've got 5 pages today, and 10 pages tomorrow, and 7 pages the next day. I might get in trouble for this, but this is one of my favorite chapbooks by our dear Ryan Collins, published by Rocktown Press, which is managed by a friend of the center, Brian Kranz. He has, a full poetry anthology out, but this one I have revisited 100 times. The pieces in here are, I don't know, they're so personal, and they're, I don't know, this is going to be the first book I think of when I think of Ryan's books. So, remote viewing available from Rocktown Press. Here's one that will, in my opinion, never go out of style, particularly during quarantine. I think it should have a resurgence. It's the Neil Gaiman, Make Good Art speech. Again, totally available online. He'll read it to you. But I really am really happy to own it. It's just graphically very, very pleasing. And it's about how to continue to keep that motivation in your heart to make good art and make fantastic mistakes. Do I want to keep going? I will just do a couple more now. I talked about the writers' rooms earlier. This is a book by the director over there at the writers' rooms, Aaron Casey. I have not read it yet. I'm actually going to start it today. I just picked it up. I'm very excited about it. I've heard great things, and hard to not just blindly recommend someone I respect so much. It's called The Purple Door District. I believe it is fantasy. I was trying to very quickly read the back, but that'll be a surprise for both of us. Here's some poetry you maybe haven't heard of. This is called The Sahara Testaments by Tade Epadiola. He's a Nigerian poet and one of the coolest humans I've ever met, and just a really, really killer poet. I think it's important to read writers from other cultures because the writing style, the writing norms of other places are just so different from our own and from the West in general. But he is so nimble and skilled with his poetry. I can't recommend Tade highly enough. I have a huge stack here, and this is just favorites. I was like, I'll throw them here, and if people get excited, people get excited. And then I take up all your time, and hopefully it was worth it. Okay, here is a how-to book, sort of, called Simply Living Well. It's something that I had on my shelf before COVID, and am now really getting into because I think we all are. I think we're all like suddenly gardeners and homemakers and cleaners and cooks. And this talks a lot about how to do that. A guide to creating natural, low-waste home. It's not super heavy on the reading. It's like how-tos, which is nice. Easy and not something you have to commit to. So I want to give you something good to like land on. I'll do 2 more, and they're going to be on writing books. And the first one is the classic On Writing by Stephen King. If you don't know it, I am very surprised. It says it's a memoir of the craft. It's Stephen King's writing advice. And again, like I said before, we tend to push genre aside, but I think it's hard to say anything bad about Stephen King if taking his writing on its merits. And who doesn't want advice from the King? And then the last one, Ryan does so much with poetry. I wanted to shake it up a little bit. This is a book called, and this is a well-vetted and highly influential, and also, like, I personally find it super useful book called Telling True Stories. It is a nonfiction writer's guide. There's a list of authors here on the front who are inside it, but it was put out by Harvard University and the Nieman Foundation. I don't know how to say that. But it is really, it's how to write good nonfiction of many genre, like, you know, memoir, journalism, etc. Literary nonfiction, you know. There are so many different ways to write nonfiction. I said that would be the last one, so that will be the last one. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for visiting. I hope to see you at the conference. I hope to see your contributions to Birdies for Charity. That, again, our number there is not on my screen. We are charity number 1370, Birdies for Charity. And yeah, message us, email us, comment. We will be around. We want to engage with you. That is all I'm doing while I'm stuck at home. Send us recommendations, send us questions. We are here. We will be back with Ryan giving a lesson in the Write More Light Write-ins again at 1 p.m. on Thursday, Central Time, 1 p.m. until 2. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I hope you're writing. I hope you're reading. I hope that quarantine is treating you well. And I hope that you can enjoy the sunshine. It's really hot here today, but it's sunny, and I'm not going to complain. Happy writing. Happy Tuesday.